Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. This is a new weekly series called Player Rankings where myself and George from Ingenuity Fantasy, which if you don't know about Ingenuity Fantasy, check out their website, ingenuityfantasy.com. It's got all sorts. It's got a transfer wizard to help you with your transfers. It's got match stats from Opta. It's got various different weekly articles about different FPL topics. And it's got these player rankings that we're going to talk through today. So if you don't know about our website, have a look in the description. Go and check it out. It's brilliant. And yeah, in these videos, me and George are going to be talking through our rankings for each different category of player. So that involves premium mids, cheap mids, premium defenders, cheap defenders, premium forwards, cheap forwards, and how we've ranked them for the next 5 coming game weeks. So we're going to be going through all of that each week and the movements in our rankings each week. But yeah, this is the first one of that series. So if you like it, make sure you hit a like. But let's get into it.
On the right here, you can see me and Brad's list for the cheap defenders. So naturally, there is quite a lot of crossover, but there's also some quite big differences. So I'm going to need to know what your issue with Livramento is.
Right, Livramento, great footballer. And every time I actually watch Newcastle, he is actually the more attacking one as well. Out of the fullbacks, he's always getting down, putting the ball in. But is Trippier not an issue at some point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It's a good point. I do think Trippier, at least for the next 5 game weeks, probably isn't that big an issue. I mean, Livramento, we even rotated him in last season, when Trippier was fit. And honestly, the way the guys play and the way our defence is playing, I just think, he's really hard to oust at the moment. Trippier, if we're being honest, Newcastle fans as well, if we're being honest, Trippier has kind of stunk it up a bit. So, if we're actually chasing Europe, I just don't think that Trippier's done enough to command a spot back. That's it for me.
It's fair.
And so, if he's only 2 million more than Hall, as you say, slightly more attacking, he offers way more in that department. So, if you're going to include Hall, it feels right to include Livramento as well. I guess we've just got differing levels of concern about Trips.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, I do like him. Like I say, every time I watch him play, he is the more attacking one.
Yeah.
From what it seems. But yeah. No,
so fair. I could probably concede some spots for him. And then Nori versus Digne. This is probably, we haven't got a huge amount of difference about where we rate them. But if we're going to recommend people who the best cheap option is, I just think I can't remember many defenders who play as attacking as Nori. That guy's permanently left wing. Yeah. Or even in and around the box. It's crazy how high he plays.
Yeah, sometimes even like centrally he's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my reasoning. I mean, Digne has been sneaky good. I just think Wolves' fixtures as well are just amazing.
Yeah. Villa's are pretty good as well, but for me,
yeah, they are.
Well, kind of less FPL wise, but Dean's been potentially maybe like Gvardiol's up there, but Dean's been one of the best left backs in the league like this season so far. Generally, Granted, Villa defense hasn't been great, but numbers it's good. I think that'll turn around. So I just think that it's a better defense. Although like clean sheets are rare this season, but I do think that Aston Villa will pick up a few.
Yeah, no, I mean I completely agree. I mean that's why I had him at 2. I just think Aitnouri is a bit of a unicorn in that sense, so that's kind of why I wanted to have him there.
Yeah.
And then premiums. I mean, the reality is there's not actually a huge amount of decent premiums to actually go through this year. But I think we've all pretty much in agreement that Arsenal's defence is back. But are you not a bit? And I noticed you had Calafiori a lot higher than Konate. Are you not slightly worried about rotation issues with Calafiori?
Not so much, to be honest. I think that their best back four. So let's assume that Ben White isn't part of the picture because for now he's not. Their best back four is Gabriel Saliba, Timber, Calafiori, and he will play that as much as possible, I believe. So we haven't seen like Zinchenko play
Yeah,
seen in a
I
long
mean, we
time.
saw Zinchenko play a little bit, but it wasn't.
Not good
It's
enough.
Arsenal tend. You're right. Arsenal do tend to like the four at the back. But if something isn't going right with, and let's say Arsenal go down early, or they need to try and make something happen. I just think Calafiori will often be the first defender on the block to get subbed if they do want to try bring on Zinchenko, or they do want to try change it around. But you're right. I think, yeah, I think he probably does. Start and maintain most games. It's just a bit. I just have doubts whether he finishes or he doesn't get rotated out a bit. But you're right. I mean, injury wise, he probably should. So I could definitely have him higher. But Kanate, yeah. Kanate, I just think for me, Liverpool's the only defence we can trust this season. And Van Dijk, he's obviously fantastic, but he is just a centre back, and I don't often like drawing too much distinction between centre backs on the exact same team, because FPL wise, they're generally going to finish with pretty identical numbers if they both start. Unless you're an insane goal threat from corners or something like that. But yeah, I mean, which
like
Van
Konate.
Dijk is a pretty good threat from corners.
For sure.
But I think the extra money you can save on Konate just means that he just has to be quite high in the rankings for me.
Yeah,
5.3 million is a really good value to get into the Liverpool defence.
Yeah, I do like him. I think he is great, to be fair. And again, I don't know if this is something that it's probably not something we should read into, but I just think that an injury is close at some point for Konate. I just cannot see him playing 38 games a season. Cannot see it.
Yeah, no, I do hear you. He doesn't have the best history for it. You're definitely right about that.
I'm not sure we can go off that, really. I'm not sure we can use that.
It's being injury prone is definitely a thing. I mean, it's a thing for someone like Konate. Do you know what I mean? That's who it's a thing for. If we're talking about other defenders, if we're talking about Van Dijk or something, then it wouldn't. But Konate, he doesn't tend to play every game. Exactly. We haven't seen it since he's moved to Liverpool. It's been lingering issues all the time. So, it's definitely something worth mentioning. And then the final one as well, I think, where we had a bit of difference. So Cucurella, at least for the next 5 games, are you worried about his minutes then? Is that it?
Very. Not even a little bit. Very. I think that Reece James will play football. Gusto is very, very good, and he will also play football.
Gusto is good. Yeah.
I see there being quite a lot of times where those two will be the fullbacks.
Cucurella, he got a full 90 last game, and they look quite good. So I think it's almost just worth the risk, because he does get forward and he does like to put balls into the box. He does have that in his arsenal. And sometimes against other teams where you might want a more conventional setup, you want someone left-footed playing left back. That is a thing that teams often want, because it just gives you the extra width. Otherwise, your left back is permanently inverted, and you have to play a very specific style. Yeah. So Cucurella offers them that width there. But you're right. He's that low for me. If he was nailed on minutes, he'd be way higher for me.
Yeah. Any of the 3 would be, to be honest.
Yeah. Exactly. But I just think you're right. I do have doubts about his minutes, but I think if he had 90 minutes last game, so there is always the potential, for him to just start those 4 games. And if he does have that potential, then he should, in theory, be a pretty good option. But yeah, as you can see, let me know whose list out of mine and Brad's you think is better. Let us know any stupid picks. There's definitely some in there, mostly from me. So let us know what you think. Cheap mids. Right, I'm going to need some explanation as to why your best cheap midfielder is someone who's blanked the last 4 weeks in a row.
Mitoma's brilliant. Mitoma, it's actually less about Mitoma and more the fact that Brighton are brilliant. Yeah. And that's kind of it, really. There's a common theme in my list where I've got Brighton players quite high in most of the categories, to be honest. I just think they're brilliant. They, like other teams we've mentioned, they're not just gonna sit back and try and grab a goal or anything like that. They will attack all out for 90 minutes in every single game. Yeah,
and completely the same. Love Brighton in that sense. So any piece of the Brighton attack is great. But that is my only issue. I think Brighton, because they're overloading the box, there's not, Mitoma doesn't have the traditional space that he used to work with, because you got João Pedro crashed in the box, you got Welbeck already in the box. So, when Mitoma would do his traditional cut-ins, suddenly that area is really, really crowded. And I think that's why we're seeing most of their goals, going to your Welbecks. João Pedro will come in and he'll take a lot of those final touches as well. I just don't think there's enough piece of the pie left for him, if I'm being honest.
I think the pie is big enough. I think the pie is big enough that all the attacking players can be good players, good FPL assets for me.
So do you think, so out of João Pedro, Welbeck, Mitoma, rank those three assets?
He's third out of them, for sure.
Yeah.
Mitoma is definitely third out of them. But in terms of, if you need a mid, then Mitoma.
Yeah,
is up
you're
there
right.
for me.
He does offer those slight extra more points for midfielder scoring, and there is definitely a bit of a difference there. So I do completely understand that. And then the other main difference we had, so you had Gibbs White and I've got Kluivert in the team. So Gibbs White, I mean, he's a great player and he's got that sort of talismanic sort of feel about him. I'm just very scared about their fixtures, if I'm being honest.
That's fair. That's completely fair reasoning. My reasons for him are that I mean, we've seen penalties are a bit of a, we're not too sure on Forest, but I still think that he could potentially be taking a penalty. And also, that he'll get good minutes. You just know he will get good minutes, which is essentially the complete opposite of the guy you've gone for instead. So
yeah, no, completely fair. I do. One thing I will say though, so Bournemouth have been one of the surprises of the season. Like, they're playing great football, they're scoring, they're playing free-flowing ball. And, if this were 3 games ago, I wouldn't think about putting Kluivert in this list. But he started the last 3 games. And, for someone whose minutes have been inconsistent, at 5.3 million to have registered 4 returns is not actually that bad. So, they've actually had some quite tricky fixtures in amongst them as well, including, Arsenal and City. So I think, they do. Now they're coming into a slightly easier stretch of fixtures, and he seems to be nailed, and he seems to be 5.3 million. So, really low ownership as well. I mean, I'm pretty sure his ownership is around, where is it? Yeah, so his ownership's 0.7%. So if you're talking about a 5.3 million player with that run of fixtures, who has started the last 3 games, I just think he does offer great differential value there as well.
Yeah, good differential given the fixtures, of course, yeah. And if he does get the minutes, then I agree he should be there. Yeah, but I'm just not as convinced on the minutes.
Yeah, and that's completely fair. And then premium mids. So premium mids, we had quite a few differences. So Son, I think, obviously Son, he does offer a permanent threat. Like, you do have him quite high for me. He does offer a permanent threat. I just think at his price point, he's going to need to take some hits, because he's not that's a lot of money for Son, if we're being honest.
Yes, but for me, he's, I don't know if he's worth the price or not, but he's got everything you want, really. He's most likely on penalties, really, albeit Spurs just don't seem to get them. But that's a different point. Yeah. And then also, the Spurs attack has been up there with Liverpool as the best in the league, numbers-wise, this season. So, admittedly, there's other players that you could go for, like Brennan Johnson, whoever, and the fixtures aren't the best at the moment. But I do think that Son, over the course of the season, will represent decent enough value. Although the problem is there's just so many other good players at that price point, like the ones above him on the list.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's all it is for me. If Son was like a mil or 2 cheaper than your Sakas and stuff like that, then I think we'd be looking at him as a really good asset. But I just think, you've got people like Bruno Fernandes who are just way cheaper than Son, and at the moment just offer way more talismanic value. Because, also, traditionally Son, the last couple of years, had been Tottenham's main goal threat, or, most of the goals have gone through him. But now they've actually got a goal-scoring 9 in Solanke. And whether we like it or not, Solanke is going to vulture quite a lot of those goals that would have traditionally gone to Son. He doesn't offer anything near what Son offers in the creative department, but he will pinch goals from him, whereas in the past, Son was also the main goal outlet as well.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's just where I am on Son. Obviously, he's got the potential, but there's too many mouths to feed there. Brennan Johnson, Solanke, even Kulusevski's been cooking a bit recently, so
He has.
just a
Yeah.
little bit worried. But then, yeah, so the Martinelli KDB debate, so our late inclusions. KDB obviously on star power. I think the only reason Martinelli's there for me is Arsenal's fixtures, and he's pretty much nailed.
I don't think he is. I just don't think he
You don't
is.
think he's nailed?
I don't at all. The fact that Odegaard is now back means that,
Yeah.
well, Trossard can still probably play centrally a bit, but
Yeah.
predominantly he will probably want to be playing left wing. So I think that those two share minutes, Martinelli and Trossard. Yeah. For me, the fixtures are great though. I will agree with that. Like if he was nailed, he'd be on my list for sure. But I just don't think he is now that Odegaard. Well, they've got enough midfielders centrally that I'm not sure Trossard gets many starts there.
Yeah.
So
I just also don't think Trossard gets too many starts out on the left. And I'll be honest. So if Martinelli hadn't scored against Chelsea, I would be a lot more worried. But I think that goal, that moment, that celebration, that did enough to buy him time over the next 5 game weeks. And also, it's not like Trossard has played well. Do you know what I mean? We haven't seen an overwhelming argument for not just taking Martinelli out of the team, but then putting Trossard there instead. So, naturally they will rotate given Arsenal's fixtures and, there's a lot of fixture congestion. I just think Martinelli gets the bulk of those Prem games. And with those fixtures, if you're getting the bulk of the Prem games, and, he's actually pretty cheap relative to some of the other guys on here as well. So just for all those reasons, I think he's probably sneaks into my list. But you're right, there is definitely a bit of concern about minutes.
Yeah, I mean that is fair. Yeah, again, but even if he starts every single game, he'll be coming off around 60, 65, 70. I mean, granted, maybe he's done enough. Maybe that's enough anyway in those fixtures. But yeah,
no, you're right. Cool. So yeah, if you guys want to let us know out of mine and Brad's list where the big errors were, who's got a better list, and then next week we can revisit this and see who gets to say I told you so. Cheap forwards. I think we're both pretty much in agreement that we're in love with João Pedro. So
he's the one.
Not least because of his talismanic status, or what Herzler said in the press conference, saying that he's the guy, he's our man. So any worries that people had about minutes, I think were put to bed with that Herzler press conference, and also the way he played against City. When he came on, they looked incredible. They were just hammering on the door. Honestly, it could have been 4-1. Genuinely, it could have been a lot more, and he was the main reason for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but the main reason, 5.4 million, is impossible to turn down. He's the cheapest on here, quite comfortably, and so the value he offers that team, unbelievable. Just value. Get João Pedro in your teams. Don't overthink this. Just find a way to squeeze him in.
Agreed.
And then so number 2, Wissa. I've got Wissa at 2.
Yeah.
You've got Wissa at 4, I believe. Is that right?
It's maybe even 5. No,
5.
4. I think it could.
No, 4. Yeah.
Either way, certainly not as high as you. Yeah. So the reason for me for that is one that Brentford's fixtures from game week 14 onwards just aren't it really. I'm not big on them, and this may not even be a problem, but for me their home form and their away form is just so polar opposite that it's just weird, and I don't even know why it's a thing, but he probably does enough in the home games to be, I've still got him fairly high. He probably does enough in the home games to be good enough value anyway. Yeah. But that's the only reason for me.
I completely agree. I think for me, it's more just what he does when he plays. He's currently playing with an XGI per 90 of like 0.76, and that's his expected goals 0.71. He's electric when he's near the ball. He's just always in and around the action, and he's just scoring goals for fun. I think Brentford also, if you want any part of Brentford's attack, which you absolutely should. I think, we mentioned before that Brentford have scored the second most goals in the league. So not wanting a slice of that action, and especially, if a slice of that action will only set you back 6.1 million, then I think it would be silly to pass up on. But you're right, there are concerns about form, but it's not like they have 4 away games and 1 home game. They have 2 home games and 3 away games. So those 2 home games will look good.
Yeah,
and
fair.
Chelsea's defense has hardly been super resolute, but Everton, Leicester, and Villa are all more than good to concede a couple goals. So
that Leicester fixture in particular, given it's at home, could be huge. In all fairness,
yeah, exactly. So honestly, he could get enough points in that game alone to justify his inclusion for the next 5 weeks. And then so premiums as well. I think there's not a huge amount of options here at premium, but one, there are a couple of areas for contention. So we both have Haaland and Isak quite high. I think that speaks for itself. But then the Havertz v Jackson debate. You're a Jackson man. I'm a Havertz man. So just take me through. Yeah, take me through Jackson.
For me, Jackson is not considerably, but he is better for me. The only thing with Jackson is obviously that he is on 4 yellow cards. So, and actually, to be honest, if he wasn't, he'd be closer to Watkins for me than
really.
Yeah, there would be a conversation between them two for me.
Yeah,
if he
I think my problem for Jackson, he's always in and around the right areas. I just don't have him down as a sort of gun finisher yet.
Which he isn't.
I think that's my problem. I also think so much. I know he plays striker, but so much of Chelsea's attack goes through Palmer that when you're talking about getting into the final third and giving people a look, Jackson is definitely second fiddle there. Whereas for other teams who have start a striker there, I think they get a lot more looks than Chelsea do.
For me, second fiddle in that attack is fine. I think
that's true.
That is an attack that will score a lot of goals. So especially with these fixtures coming up as well. That's not to say Havertz hasn't got good fixtures. Of course he has, and he is also a very good option. But for me, I think the only thing with me and Havertz is that if I was going triple Arsenal, I'd just go double defence. I think that's all it is for me.
Yeah, and I think that's a completely valid point. I just think, for me, what we haven't seen yet is Arsenal's defence actually return to what it used to resemble. So I think for now, if you did want to go to Havertz, Arsenal's fixtures are good enough that they're probably always going to score in those games. But we just haven't seen their defence be solid enough to say that it's definitely the way to go. But Havertz has always. The good thing about Havertz is that he's going to be playing and starting there every game. Jesus isn't a threat to him at all. But Arsenal's attack tend to spread their goals out a bit more than Chelsea's do. Chelsea's attack is funneled through Palmer. Obviously Saka gets in there, but Saka's main thing this season has been assists. That's where Saka's points have come from. So I think, if that's the main source of Saka's points, then you can feel slightly more encouraged about Arsenal's other assets. Whereas, someone like Cole Palmer, that man's a goal scorer as well.
For sure.
So I think that's just that's where it is. But yeah, as you say, with Odegaard coming back, I think we can definitely feel encouraged about Havertz, because he's having to do less dropping back, less of that creative, and hopefully with Odegaard back, he can we'll see a massive increase in his goal scoring.
I do agree.
That's the only logic there. Mm-hmm. And then the other one. So if anyone was thinking about this, we've both got them in the list, but Darwin and Gakpo. So I can't remember Darwin being this cheap. He is very, very cheap. The problem is Arne Slot is essentially the new Pep with this sort of roulette he's playing at the moment. We don't know who's playing at left back. We don't know who's playing on the left wing. We don't know who's playing up front. The only nailed one is pretty much Salah, which, for the best team in Europe, you'd really hope that, you had more than one guaranteed asset to go and pick from. So what would you do about Darwin and Gakpo, do you reckon?
Firstly, I'd have neither. But it's a minutes thing. It really is. The problem with it is as well. It's not even. If you're going to go with one, then do have a great bench option. But the chances of them coming on in a game are pretty high as well. So I'm just not sure that. Unless we see Jota's injury, unless he's not coming back as soon as we think, then
Yeah.
Darwin does become a better option, of course. But
Yeah.
it does sound like Jota is back soon. So
Yeah. And we've also seen Diaz even play up top at times as well. So you'd think when Jota went out, the number 9 option, Darwin would be posted up there most games. But we've seen Slot even rotate Diaz there. So yeah, for now we would pretty much avoid any of those Liverpool forwards. If you did want to get even another attacking Liverpool asset, like maybe Diaz is the one to think about, but I think even he's getting rotated. Just generally avoid them for now.
yeah, agreed.
But yeah, again, let us know whose list you like more, what issues you have with it, and then we'll see you all next week where we can revisit some of our missed and successful shouts.
Okay, that's all for this week. If you like the video, make sure you hit the like button. It really helps. Make sure you subscribe. If you've got any opinions or you think we're wrong or right on a certain thing, then do let us know in the comments. Make sure you check out ingenuityfantasy.com for the rankings, for the transfer wizard, for the Opta match stats, and for the weekly articles as well. Next week, we'll go through any changes in our rankings and the reason for them. So, yeah, if you like this one, do hit like, and we will see you in the next one.